Hey everyone, thanks for joining a special episode of the DIB Innovators. We're here at the 47G event in Salt Lake City, and I have the honor of talking with Andy Yakulis. He is the president CEO of Vector.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So cool background, we're at a cool event. This is pretty neat. First time I've been here. But talk to me about how you've got a special ops background, West Point, kind of how your journey got you to the point where you're now running Vector.
Well, thanks for having me, Dave, and thanks for the interest in Vector. Started out as a recruit, getting recruited to play lacrosse at West Point. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea what the Army was. My family had served in the military, and I took my official visit to West Point on September 7th, 8th, and 9th of 2001. And so it was the last time anyone ever went on to a military base before having to show your ID. And I committed to going to West Point. 2 days later was September 11th, 2001. I remember watching the towers come down in math class, thinking that I just committed to West Point, and was pretty fired up to go after that. And ended up going, went there for 4 years, and then commissioned as an aviation officer. So I flew helicopters. Went right to combat at a flight school, served a couple tours in the conventional Army, and then was fortunate enough to get selected to go into special operations.
Okay.
So I spent a good 10 years of my life in the special operations community. Spent most of my adult life back and forth overseas in combat. And while I enjoyed serving and it was an honor to lead in combat, I was always very frustrated with the type of technology we had. I was always the sort of the officer that asked, why don't I have better tech? Why is there better tech on my cell phone or my car than in this elite organization that I'm in? And was inspired to do something to streamline technology to the warfighter, and sort of made that my mission. I left the special operations community, had the opportunity to go to business school, and then Army Futures Command and the Office of Strategic Capital. Really dove headfirst into tech innovation and defense acquisitions, and was trying to find a way to, again, streamline tech into the hands of the warfighter.
That's great. So how was the time in the Office of Strategic Capital? Because that came up, that's been around, both of us have startups or, relatively new. Did you find that's working? I mean, good concept, but there seems to be a lot of programs that are tough to actually push through.
So the Office of Strategic Capital was really kicked off in December of 2022. So it's still fairly early. Yep. They got their appropriations and their authorizations the very next year. And what OSC is a federal loan program. There's I think at last count, 131 different federal loan programs. The United States government, Department of Energy has a lot of famous ones. The DoD and now the Department of War just never had one. And so OSC was a way for the Department of Defense at the time, now Department of War, to put loans either into companies to onshore scale-up manufacturing for national security critical technology, or to put a loan on an investor that was interested in investing part of their portfolio into national security. And so that concept, I think, is fantastic. It's a proven concept. The federal loan program is a proven concept. OSC is still early, and so it's still in its early days. But I think they're on the right track to actually making a pivotal movement to help scale up manufacturing here in the United States to support national security.
That's good. A lot of changes in the whole acquisition program, which is needed. I mean, we've got to go faster. And so you're at OSC. And what was missing? What did you see as the opportunity space to start Vector?
Well, in its name, strategic. Strategic a lot of times could be slow. And as a former tactical guy, I just wasn't built to go slow. And I was watching it while I was at OSC, while I was in the Pentagon. I was seeing a lot of technology come through my office. I was getting pitched to a lot of companies. I was talking to a lot of investors that was investing in technology. And then I was watching the type of technology that was being used on the battlefield in Ukraine. Just watching from afar, reading, and digesting podcasts and things like that. And I saw this disconnect. I saw this disconnect from what I was being shown in the Pentagon in a very, innovative organization that was trying to incorporate technology. And then I was seeing how fast technology was being used in the battlefield in Ukraine. And the disconnect was dramatic. And I was just starting to get concerned that we as a nation were not ready from a technological standpoint to go to war with China, which hopefully never happens. But if it did, I didn't feel we were the tech superpower we once were when it came to technology. And this growing concern sort of kind of percolated through me. And I started developing this thesis of, well, if we're not ready, we need to be ready. How can we streamline tech to the warfighter? Going back to my special operation days, this is something I was always passionate about. And I really kind of worked hard on this problem set of like, well, how can we move faster? And that's when the idea of Vector really sort of came about.
So talk to us about Vector.
Sure. So Vector is what I call modern warfare as a service. It is not a drone company. It is not a drone training company. What we are doing is we're doing service-based contracts. We go after, for the most part, different pot of money, operations and management dollars to get on service contracts to do a lot of tactical integration, a lot of tactical development, a lot of tactical training on unmanned systems. But we also develop our products with our end users, sometimes shoulder to shoulder, and then we build those products at scale, and then we provide them underneath service contracts. Well, we've sold hundreds and hundreds of drones to the Department of War at this point, but actually they don't buy the drone, they buy the service. Sometimes they kind of buy the subscription of the drone. So think about it as like drones as a subscription model. The reason why that's interesting is the drones that we build are attritable. It's this word that the Department of Defense, now Department of War, uses. It means it's consumable, throwaway technology. There's this very unique opportunity when you sell a piece of attritable technology that when it attrits and your customer comes back to you to replace it, you can give them an updated product based on the product given before that only works on a service contract. And so that's why we went to market with this very novel approach, modern warfare as a service.
And so it was, I mean, it sounds like it's working, been receptive through your customers that they like this idea. I mean, generally they're not huge service fans, but if you find good traction.
They're not service fans, but they're high-end capability fans. They're fans of acquiring technology that's relevant today versus yesterday. And so the language that we are using, we'll actually see a lot of the department using back at industry. Not to say that we'd influence that, but we're definitely on the right path. When I speak to senior leaders, when I talk on Capitol Hill, when I talk to officials in the United States government, they get very excited about this language we're using because it's about speed, it's about relevance, it's about capability. It's not about being vendor locked into a program or a product that you have to sustain whether you like it or not for 7 to 10 years. And so there is this sea change coming in defense acquisitions. Secretary Hegseth is likely going to make a big announcement on Friday, we think, talking in terms of moving faster, more agile contracting, kind of like in the way how Vector has set itself up.
So talk to me about, by the way, awesome. I love the concept. So let's say, other programs they're selling, you've got a 8-foot by 8-foot quadcopter, something, a large one or a small one. They would buy that. Talk to me about how they would get that fielded and then compare it to like the life cycle of someone contracts with you and what looks different and, how those compare.
A couple different ways, and we're doing it in a couple different ways, and we've pitched it or presented this capability as a service in a number of different ways. One way, which is happening now, which is we are on a service-based contract that has a variety of different menu options, if you will. They can buy the training, they be in the military, can buy the training, they can hire us to do a butt and seat and sort of do product development with them. They can hire us to do a customized product development based off an emerging requirement, or they can just buy large quantities of product. They can order any of that or all of that underneath a service contract using O&M dollars.
So they can buy the drones themselves.
They can through the service contract using O&M dollars, operational unit dollars, not procurement dollars. That's much faster. You can do that in the year of execution. And a lot of times the drone doesn't end up being the end item because you're buying the service, not the drone. And so then you can iterate on that drone. There's not a set requirement of the drone when you go through it underneath the service contract. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it that I think is potentially even more interesting for the Department of War is if they go down this path of a stockpile of drone. And so just to back up, when I say the word drone, what I really mean is piloted munition. The drone is not the drone that we think of like Predator, Reaper, Global War on Terror drones. These are smaller attritable systems that you strap a munition to and go and kinetically strike targets. And so that's the type of drones. But if you think about it as a munition, well, we have got stockpiles of munitions, right? Ready for the next war. Why don't we have stockpiles of drones? But if you go back to this concept of like, well, the drone iterates so fast, sometimes it's not as capable or even relevant. So why would I keep a stockpile of drones? And if I'm the United States government, if I just put a bunch of drones in a stockpile, I'm not maintaining that stockpile. They could be irrelevant. And so what I have started to introduce to the United States government and some of our foreign partners is buy the stockpile, but put it on me, the contractor, to maintain it for you. Make sure the batteries stay relevant. Make sure the internal components are at the advances they need to be. Make sure if some sort of innovation happens in Ukraine or Israel, we're incorporating those innovations into your stockpile. For the government to do that, very, very hard. For our country to do that, hard as well, but incentivize me on a contract to do that for you. And so again, what we've started pitching to some of our customers is buy the stockpile, but don't take ownership of any of the drones. We will, on a tranche delivery system, as you need to, start delivering drones for you. But we will maintain the relevance and the capability of the stockpile to make sure everything is at the highest level of capability needed to deter enemies. And if we have to go to a conflict or war, you're ready with the most capable systems.
That is great.
That is an as a service contract. That is not a procurement contract.
That's so good. Yeah, and so you get the newest things, you can put in the new software, and continue to cycle on that.
Correct. Very hard to do once you've delivered that, and that happens with larger exquisite systems, but smaller tactical systems, we believe it makes more sense, almost like it's a government owned but like contractor maintained model is what we're.
So how long, let's say someone wants to stockpile 1,000 drone munitions, how long are those contracts usually?
So maintain a stockpile?
Oh, yeah. Or do it's just like a subscription? They just annually keep re-upping it, and then when they're done, they're done? Or you go like 10-year subscription, or how does that work?
It's a good question. And there's no precedent for it right now, because in Ukraine, they don't maintain stockpiles of drones because they're attriting drones so fast. Some estimates are about 40,000 one-way drones each month. Likely Russia's doing the same. I think they produced somewhere around 1.5 million one-way attack drones last year, on pace to do about 2.5 million this year. But they attrit them, they use them, they're consuming them, they're not stockpiling them. The United States is looking at, well, do we want to stockpile? Are we going to have the same level of attrition? Is the Pacific fight the same as the Ukrainian fight? So there's still a lot of questions to be asked. And so we're not seeing large stockpiles of drones yet. What we have done is set up a world-class manufacturing facility here in Utah. We have set it up. We have all the tooling, the kitting, the institutional expertise to be able to manufacture at scale. But we are waiting to see how the Department of War wants to move stockpile or not, and how some of our foreign partners want to move stockpile or not. So it's a good question, but no one knows the answer yet. The department doesn't know the answer yet. We're hoping to get more indications once the government opens up. We're in this terrible government shutdown right now. And so they're not buying one drone, let alone 1,000 or 10,000 drones yet, but hopefully we'll see some movement here in the near future.
It's just fascinating. You're buying weapons on a service contract.
You're buying the delivery vehicle for a weapon or a service contract. Yes. We don't do the munition at Vector. We have a lot of partners for that, and the government does that themselves. But yes, they're buying the vehicle to deliver munition on the service contract,
which is pretty darn cool. So you've got, and so as I just think about this, so normally to get a drone to the front lines, you pitch it, government buys it, you start delivering, they now get these, and they got to figure out a training program, how to train them up. Right. Then they got to go to the units, train those guys. There's sustainment issues with that. Then they push it forward. Well, how do I fly this thing, besides sustain? That takes this all off the table, right?
Essentially, yes. Can you imagine if we were trying to introduce the machine gun to soldiers, but they didn't even know how to shoot? They didn't know how to shoot, a normal rifle, let alone a machine gun. And then the machine gun was evolving very, very fast, since they had to learn how to use a new machine gun every time. That's hard for the military to do. And so coming back to the core thesis of the company is we felt like a private company was needed to help scale up the ability, not just to buy a drone, to buy a better drone, but to instruct and train the military how to fly drones today. And then as they advance, to keep up with those advancements. That is, again, it's hard for a private company to do, but it's very, very hard for the United States military to do. And so what we wanted to do, which we realize in that vision now, is provide this fully integrated capability, this fully integrated service, training, doctrine development, tech intelligence gathering, and the tech intelligence reporting based on what's happening in the modern battlefield, product development, and the products themselves, all as one service, all underneath a subscription model, all very, very agile and customized to each customer. That's what Vector is, and that's what we're creating. We're really proud of that.
Love it. Do you have folks that will deploy forward? There's some, I think Palantir did some of this, like where your guys are overlooking the shoulder in combat, right, for example.
Right. And Palantir is a great example on the software side, and this is why they were so successful in the early years, and why they're still successful, is they have those forward deployed engineers that, to your point, Dave, sits over his shoulder with end users. They do that for a variety of reasons. They do that to understand, is their software working? They do that to get credibility, but also understand, like, what do I need to build next? Where's the puck going? So we are using a very, very similar model. I went so far as to hire folks that live in Ukraine, hire folks that live in Israel, and hire folks that live in Taiwan, but we also maintain a rotational presence of individuals that go to those locations to observe tactics, techniques, procedures, and the technology usage in those TTPs. They then bring that back. That influences a lot of our product roadmap, a lot of the innovations into our products, but it also influences how we train the military. I had a number of individuals in Ukraine fairly recently. They were observing the latest advancements in the tactical usage of unmanned systems. And literally weeks later, they were training a special operations force on those tactics they had just learned weeks prior. That's how fast we need to be on this refresh cycle, because that's how fast technology and the tactical usage of tech is being used on the battlefield in Ukraine.
Yeah. And to not be part of Ukraine would be very difficult because it is changing so fast, and the TTPs are, and the capability sets just shift. How many times have you had to significantly shift your delivery, your platform delivery?
We are building a very open modular architecture. And so we're trying to build a drone that's not purpose-built for one mission set, but it's open and capable enough to do a variety of mission sets, that's capable to integrate a variety of different payloads, and even what I call attritable autonomy. So just enough autonomy in the drone to keep the price point low. And so because we've built and designed in a very open architecture way, we do little mods on the drone based on what we see from the model battlefield and what our customers want. But, the physics of the drone in a quadcopter format are pretty much what they're going to be for the most part. You can vary up the size or shrink the size depending on the requirement of the end user. But because we've done this very open architecture concept, we haven't changed, for the most part, the design of the drone, but we've changed how we integrate certain things into it. Both the terms of the drone, some of the software and firmware we've changed, or the payloads and how we integrate that. That's really what's changing.
So you're bringing in other technology sets for like the navigation system, or are you doing that because it's GPS denied? Like, how are you getting them on top? Like, is that all fall within your, platform's capability?
Some of it, yes. Some of it we do internally, and some of it we partner with companies. You can think of Vector in a lot of different ways. Modern Warfare as a Service is one. Tactical Systems Integrator is another. And while we are building the platform, we are designing the platform underneath service-based contract approach, we also incorporate payloads from other companies. There's a fantastic company called Theseus that does visual navigation. So it's, think GPS deny, think 6 cameras looking down, looking at the Earth, and based off the map that is in that platform, in that payload, it knows where it is. We've incorporated that into our drone, and they've been a great partner of ours. And so that is how we make up for GPS denied environments. Now, for a lot of the work we're doing domestically to train and scale up here in the United States, we're still using GPS, but we do have the capability to go GPS denied and use a variety of partners for the visual navigation, just like we use a variety of partners on the kinetic integration side as well.
What was the biggest takeaway that just kind of opened your eyes in Ukraine of how you deliver TTPs that you saw that have shifted in the time that you've been, with your eyes focused on that?
Yeah, I'll start by saying when I went to Ukraine last year, I was blown away at how embedded the drone companies were with the end users. Now, they can do that because they can literally drive to the front line and test their products with their end users, come back to their lab, their engineering lab, and make tweaks to make a better advancement. We're not at war, thankfully. So I was trying to replicate that innovation cycle, and I do that through training the military. And so we embed with them on training contracts, hence the service-based approach and the tactical training. And we're iterating with the U.S. military based off their needs, which is a little bit different than the Ukrainian needs. And so that was, I think, the biggest overarching takeaway. On the biggest tech takeaway, we were one of the first to see fiber optic cables being used integrated into a drone. And so just to back up, the way a drone, a first-person view drone works is you have a controller, you have a radio signal from your controller to the drone, and you see what the drone sees on a pair of goggles. And so there's radio signals kind of bouncing back and forth on antennas. Well, you can easily jam those radio signals. And so that's what the Russians and Ukrainians have been doing to each other, is jamming each other's radio signals. And so what did the Ukrainians do? Well, they strapped a fiber optic cable spool on the bottom of their drones, and the spool is about this big, and it looks like fishing line. It's that thin, it looks like fishing line. And for about $500 to $1,000, you can put a spool of fiber optic cable on the bottom of your drone, upwards of 10 kilometers. And instead of the drone being piloted via a radio signal, it's manually connected, kind of like a tow missile, connected from the controller to the drone, and that way it bypasses jamming. And we saw this being used. And so as an aside, now the battlefields in Ukraine are just littered with this fiber optic cable. Like the battlefields are glistened with fiber optic cable, which again looks like fishing line. And so we saw this being used. And as a quick story, we were on a service contract to deliver drones for the United States military to do a training mission to go in deep into a cave system. And our customer wanted to use a series of repeaters to extend the signal as you kind of lose the link as you make turns in the cave. But because we were seeing fiber optic cable being used in Ukraine, when we were on a service contract, we were not required to use repeaters. We were required to do the service and the training to deliver the capability. We took that innovation from Ukraine. We found adequate suppliers of fiber optic cable. We integrated it onto our drone, and we taught the United States military how to use that fiber optic cable. Then we sold them the drones with fiber optic cable, again, all underneath the service contract. And that's an example of how you can take a battlefield innovation from one part of the world, apply it to a little bit of a different mission set, cave in this concept. If you do that fast and you're on a service contract, you can move in a time period of weeks instead of years, which has been the standard prior to Vector attacking the ecosystem with a service-based contract approach.
Well, what an amazing concept, and I love it. I mean, to be able to just pivot and get warfighters what they need without going through 6 months of training somewhere. It's just, bam, you're there and you're going.
Or 6 years of procurement.
Or 6 years of procurement, exactly. And to be able to iterate on the fly, update with new software, and not get stuck in acquisition trains that are just preventing them from doing that. Well, this is awesome. Tell me about, we're going to have to wrap this up, but, next 5 years, where do you see Vector? Where are you going? What's your vision forward look like?
If you think of the defense industrial base as a pyramid, the very top of the pyramid, both in price point, highest price point, and lowest quantities of systems, that's where I see the defense primes. We need the defense primes. These are Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics. They make fantastic, exquisite systems. We need them. The question I think I have for the defense industrial base is how many F-35 jet fighters do we really need? The middle of the defense industrial base are other fantastic companies, the new Neoprime, Saronic, Anduril, AeroVironment, fantastic companies, but they're making systems that are more quantity of systems, middle of the pyramid, a little bit lower price point. What we think is missing in the market is the bottom of the pyramid, both in price point, lowest price point, but highest quantities of systems. That is what I would call an attritable defense prime. That is what we are building towards, is a family of attritable systems, but sold as a service. Because again, they're attritable, Dave. There's this very unique opportunity. It's also a responsibility to provide our end users a better product as they attrit. I just think the only way to be an attritable defense prime, to truly build attritable systems, is to sell them as a service, so you have this opportunity to refresh the technology. And that's what we're building for. We're really excited about that. We'll always have this service component. We'll always do tactical training for our end users, because that is how we understand requirements and make a better product for them. But there's a lot to come for Vector. Some exciting announcements actually later this week about what's the next phase in our attritable defense prime journey.
So how does someone follow Vector?
We're pretty active on LinkedIn. You can find us on LinkedIn, and our website is tfvector.com. And so we'll put a lot of announcements there as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Please do. Enjoyed it.